Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Burning Questions. My name's Alec, I'm the Technical Manager at Grenfell Tower, and in this mini-series we've been covering the topic of competency. What we wanted to do is get outside voices from people that are a big part of the passive fire protection community, and luckily for us, and thankful as well, I'm joined today with Mandy Youssef from BB7, so thank you very much for joining me. Just for case any of the audience doesn't already know you, I'm sure many people watching LinkedIn have seen your attributes. I think you win more awards than I do. That's a sucker punch to me a little bit, but yeah, no. Just for the audience, if you can just give a brief rundown of your role and sort of your day to day, just so they can understand where your point of view is going to be coming from.
Yeah, thank you for that introduction. That's lovely, and thank you for having me. My name is Mandy Youssef. I'm Associate Fire Engineer at BB7. I work on a number of projects, high-profile projects, as a typical fire engineer does, ranging from REBA 1 through to 7. Day-to-day, specifically, quite thoroughly enjoy 4 and 5, but as well as getting into the nitty-gritty of all the design aspects. So yeah.
No, perfect. No, that's great. And like I said, I think your aspects can be really good on this episode because you are from the beginning all the way to the end. You know, I'm normally in the middle section predominantly, but you're going to see the areas I don't cover. So I said the mini series is covering competency. So from your aspect, in your view, because obviously there's a lot of it's a hot word around and people have their own views of it. What does competency mean to you, and why do you think it's important as well?
I think competency in general is a word that refers to having knowledge, necessary knowledge and skills as well as experiences. And that is, especially within fire engineering, is to effectively perform tasks and make informed decisions on those on your field or within your field. And it also encompasses like a deep understanding of fire safety principles and regulations and the best practices. So as well as understanding what competency is, I think it's very important. I think we discussed this briefly, is that if you're not competent in a particular aspect, that's okay, but you just need to illustrate it. And competency is having knowledge and understanding what it is that you're discussing. And it's very important that word, like we've said, is a burning question at the moment. It's a word that's been, in the industry for, I think, the last few years. Are you competent? How do you derive competency within your team? And self-reflection. There is several resources out there to illustrate, and if you're not competent, reach out to those resources.
That was great. So like I said, because competency is quite a used term in the industry, everyone seems to have a different sort of version of it, and I'm kind of on the same lines as yours. I think one of the common things that bounced around is knowing what you don't know, and that's like what you've said there. And I think people need to be open and honest, say, I don't know, but I know where to get the answer, or that I know people, etc. We're supposed to be a community, and I think that was one of the things we talked about before this, and I think we'll discuss it more, is I think a lot of people sometimes are quite close-knit, and they're like very protective of their IP, I suppose, but I think we need to get the knowledge out there. People are wanting it and willing to get it, etc. So with that in mind, why do you think it's important that competency is such a burning question? Why is it important that the industry considers competency, etc.?
Well, just going back to what you were saying about like the close-knit information that maybe others are not willing to share. The end goal for all of us working in this industry is to create safe spaces.
Yeah.
And it's unachievable if you're aware of information and not willing to share it, and therefore competence is paramount in influencing your aspect or what you're trying to achieve. And if I'm aware of something, there is no benefit to me only being aware of it, because the end goal is together to create a safe space. So I keep referring back to safe spaces, but it is the leading factor at the end of the day. And understanding that why it's important is because it eventually will result to a better outcome.
Yeah, 100%. No, I totally agree with that. I think the why is very important for some people. Used to see it more as a tick boxing exercise, as I use, but when you realise that at the end of the day, this could have the deciding factor on someone being alive or not being alive is
potentially could result in a catastrophic outcome if you're unaware of what you have or haven't designed properly. And reaching out and saying I'm unsure, but I've spoken to this, or I'd recommend speaking to X company who might have a better understanding on this to justify or further discuss this point would be helpful.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And that also allows your client 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, to have more trust in you. There is a leading brand, not in the engineering industry, leading brand that has the motto, "I don't know, let's find out together."
That's great.
And that welcomes and that encourages those to say, "I'm not sure about that, but why don't we go find out?" Because you learn what you don't know.
Yeah, every day's a school day.
Every day's a school day, the typical phrase.
No, and sort of, I know obviously the main subject about competence, but I think, and if you don't mind, I'm just going to go slightly off key, but I think it'll be interesting for me, but I think the audience as well is, obviously we briefly talked about this, obviously you're a fire engineer and that takes a lot of training for you to be competent. And obviously you sort of briefly explained it that, I don't know how long, I mean, typically I think it's like 3 or 5 years, I don't know, but you don't go straight into fire engineering, do you? It's sort of a dedicated thing. It's quite unique. And I don't think people sort of realise out there that how marginalised that is. Like there isn't a huge, I don't know what the exact figure is, but for you yourself as an engineer, it was like you were just talking before when you joined, that you just got kind of jumped into the sort of spotlight. So for someone who's like thinking, oh, I need a fire engineer, I mean, it's not an easy task to find suitable fire engineers, really, is there? So
no, you're right, and we're diverting just a tad, but fire engineering isn't something that you are aware of at university to say I'm going to study fire engineering. It's a very specialised subject. This is an episode on its own that we could talk about for hours. But you're right, it takes a lot of training, and you typically get, very rarely do you get a graduate with a fire engineering degree, etc. But you typically get those that have civil structurals, etc. So they in themselves need a lot of background knowledge, understanding, parameters, etc. So with that in mind, a lot of training is required, and at BB7 we have a graduate training program that allows, anyone, it's not necessarily specific to graduates, but it requires everyone to understand every aspect of the build and their design stage. So you're talking right from 1 through to 7, because you can't be competent if you're unaware of what happens in the next stage.
Yeah, no, that's it. And I think actually that kind of leads quite nicely into like, what do you think can support competence in the industry? So obviously, like you said, BB7 of your knowledge hub, because again, even when you've graduated, even when I've done certain things, you're not then saying, that's it, I've stopped learning. We've just said that, every day is a school day. So what do you think also can support competency in the industry?
Several factors can support competency in the industry. Ongoing education and training programs is first, CPD. Every institute, whether it's the EIFE or other institutes, require a competent member to actively update their records in their training development. So that is the first starting point. CPD, continued professional development, accreditation schemes, mentorship, knowledge sharing initiatives we discussed earlier about, maybe not willing to share initiatives, collaboration like we do quite regularly, and I think we're lucky in that sense that we can bounce ideas off of each other. I can email you and say, what's your thoughts? Could you assist? Additionally, mainly research and development to advance fire safety can further enhance competency within our field. Yeah,
no, I think it's really good. Training, I'm a big advocate. I do. In fact, they call me Mr. CPD in the office sometimes because I'm always on it. Actually, one of the other things I think is good that I'm sort of seeing on sort of social media aspects is what I don't see is enough praise in the industry. You always see those bad photos of installs and stuff like that, but I think where projects are starting to do it right, especially with the implementations of the gateways and stuff like that, I think there needs to be an emphasis of, the main contractor, the engineer, everyone that works together, just say, look, we can do it right, and then let's see and learn from that as well, and share. And I think, again, if we stop everyone tightly holding on to their resources as much. We can't share absolutely everything, because some of us are businesses, etc. But I think there is a lot that can be shared, etc. as well.
Agree.
So with that in mind then, because especially as you've been in the industry a little bit longer than myself, even though I look a lot older, so I feel, what sort of positive changes have you seen though? Because again, going back, praise, I don't want to always just focus on negative. What are the positive things that you've seen in the industry?
Increased awareness already is a positive within the fire engineering industry. It's driven by advancements, people like yourselves that are out there promoting good practice, explaining what good practice looks like, trying to achieve good practice, and also early engagement. So again, not probably another topic that we can sit and discuss quite heavily on, but there is a greater focus on like holistic fire safety approaches and performance-based design risk assessments and methodologies, and prioritising those, we will achieve effectiveness and efficiency. But like you said, definitely identifying those that are doing it right and raving about those are what we're starting to see, which is, I think positive changes is definitely on the cusp with early engagement. Is what I'm starting to see a lot more. And awareness.
It's good. No, it's good. I'm glad that, because again, I sit in my little office with a white wall, so I don't always see it, but it's good. I think the positive things need to be shouted about, and I think that's another way people learn, because it's like, we've just done a joint effort document where one of our main contractors explained for those that are interested in money, obviously it's life sensitive more important, but how much they saved by early engagement because they didn't have to add loads.
I see it.
So there is aspects that as well for a business.
From different aspects, we discussed this earlier, didn't we? The earlier you engage, the less costs it is to you, because there is less to engineer essentially, and therefore the less engineering, the less bespoke designs you have. And I think that allows us to work together and collaborate on those areas that do require that specific engineering aspect.
100%. So we've had the positive, and I know this question you could probably spend weeks talking about, but sort of what are the challenges you are still facing that maybe if we highlight them here, people can sort of realise let's overcome these sort of things as well.
So I guess budget constraints are I guess a real big issue. A lot of clients per se would not understand the benefits of having that early engagement, and it sounds quite contradictory because I've seen the benefits of having early engagement versus those that aren't engaged early, and therefore requires time and having to go back and redo quite a lot of aspects. But additionally, ensuring consistent competency across all the industry, within the industry, is something that is still quite lacking from my perspective, from my opinion. So there are a lot of areas there and challenges there that we're facing, in the sense that not everyone's aligned, and it will take a little bit of time. I think we're getting to a better position, but in terms of alignment and delayed engagement is probably the key.
One we actually again briefly talked about before this, but one that I get a lot is, do you think one of the challenges as well is people don't sort of realise limitations on what is achievable? I mean, like I said, we joked that I'm sure people think that you've got a magic wand and you can wave stuff over there. So you can be the most competent person, but there are limitations of what I'm able to fire test, what you're able to risk assess or engineer, etc. So I think people need to realise, I think you used a good term actually before, that they seem to think everything can be engineered, etc. So that still must be quite a big challenge in the industry as well.
Yeah, you tend to have the word engineer after your name, and you can fix all their problems. Which I love having that that mindset. But like you said, there are limitations, and there are reams and boundaries that you must work within, because like you said, you haven't done the tests, so how can I confirm that? Yes, we can look at the proposals, etc. But unfortunately, I'm not willing to say something's okay without having seen that it is actually okay, because what information do I need to go off? Do I have that information?
Yeah.
And I think understanding that there are boundaries helps, from an engineer's perspective, and it's okay from a fire engineer's perspective to say, this has not been tested. I can't certify that this would perform in that manner.
I mean, yes. No, it's good. And I mean, I'm not going to dive too deep in it and go off topic, but that ties really nicely with one of the knowledge hubs I do about talking about engineered judgments, etc. Because I get a lot of people seem to think that I'm just able to write stuff, and I quite clearly explain there are guidelines of how things are done, and ideally you'd have a impartial person that's qualified, such as yourself, look at it. And it's not that we're not willing to help out. I will happily provide you all the evidence I think is relevant, because I know my fire test evidence better than yourselves, because we have hundreds of test reports, etc. So there are ways and means, but I think people need to realise that, we're not wizards, as I like to joke.
And also it takes a bit of time to come to derive and put all that information together. It's not something that can just be done in an afternoon or in one day's work. It does take a lot of time, because you've got to review a number of set of documentations, like you've said, and understand different characteristics of what you're looking at. So just having that appreciation that it does take time to produce such judgment, as you said.
And especially, and we've mentioned this for, I mean, for both of us, the thing is, you're putting your neck on the line as well. And that's the thing, what people sometimes don't realise is, I like to sleep at night. I want to make sure I'm happy with what I've said. So everything that I ever say here at Wellfire, and I know you do the same, is, I always have the rule, would I be happy to stand up in court and say it? And if I'm not, then I'm not going to do it, etc. And I think people need to sort of realise that, because I know some people in the industry will quite quickly throw you under the bus if they can, etc. So I know we slightly went off topic there, but I think that's a good one of the challenges, I think, for people watching to face, etc. So I know you've actually kind of briefly already sort of mentioned what BB7 are doing, but so what are you and your company sort of doing to be competent, maybe ahead of what any legislation that's coming in? What do you do to ensure competence? But I know you've already briefly sort of talked about that already.
Yeah, so I briefly spoke about our strong emphasis on staying ahead of changes. And we cultivate a knowledge sharing initiatives, such as Learning Lounge, and encourage and collaborate with leading disciplines within the industry. We also like to externally offer our services in the sense that we offer CPDs externally, share up different understandings and topics, and assist with our continuous growth and improvement. But regards to staying ahead of the legislation and maintaining competency within our team, we achieve this by, again, CPD initiatives and participating in training events and courses that are accredited to allow us to always be ahead and assist in the change of within the industry.
Yeah, no. Thank you very much for that. Again, I know we've talked. You've actually mentioned this quite a bit, and so have I. So when something is outside your competency, what sort of sources of information do you go? Which I know you briefly talked about that, but is there any sort of specific areas you tend to go to yourself?
Reputable sources of information, such as industry publications, peer-reviewed journals, technical guidance documents, and consultation with subject matter experts, such as yourselves. So partnering with trusted suppliers, manufacturers. So if you're unaware of a specific detail, reaching out to that manufacturer and explaining and asking questions. The worst you're going to get is further knowledge. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah. For some people, they don't like to learn, I suppose. But that's great. And I think that's sort of summed up the whole thing. But I think sort of for the audience, and we could have a whole episode on it, is the early engagement. So I think one of the key factors for yourself, for ourselves, is that early engagement does work. So sort of to tie it all up, is there sort of like in fact, I'll ask you something again off the cuff. So in the next 12 months, how do you think the industry is going to sort of move forward? Do you think, I'll be honest, we're only into the start of 2024, and my workload from early engagement has increased like 200% at least. Like
That's great.
which is great, and I like it. And I was just wondering if you're seeing the same, that maybe projects are taking their time a bit more, and are you sort of seeing that competency thing? Or do you think the momentum's going to keep going for the next 12 months or even longer than that, etc.?
Yes, well, it's great that you're being engaged early. Like we said, it saves a lot of time. There's so many advantages for that. Yes, I do see it moving in the right direction in the sense that with the Gateway 2s and 3s coming out, it will help in terms of slowing things down to make sure you've got the required and necessary information to allow you to get to that milestone, and making sure, along like we said about the golden thread, having your information detailed. It's not just having a document with nothing marked up and thinking that you've ticked off a box because you've got a set of GAs.
Yeah.
But the set of GAs don't tell you nothing from here or there. So I do see an improvement. I see an improvement in the sense that people care, which wasn't something that I saw before, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
And
No, I agree.
there is a change, and fire engineering and the industry is at the forefront of people's initiation in terms of their meetings, etc. So yeah, I do see it maintaining its momentum, and hopefully your workload will go to
Again,
double.
I'm glad. Like it to me, it's always been strange because I was quite new to the industry, how it was never done this way before, but I've seen it, and the gateways, I like how you mentioned that, even though I'm a firm believer, and hopefully it will go to all buildings, not just higher risk, because I think it is a key attribute. So just, obviously, I've taken up enough of your time today and stuff. Is there any sort of like final words, maybe even just sort of advise, because I know you can come in at early stages, what's sort of the best stage that if customers that are watching this want to reach out to you, what sort of, when would you say is the best point to try and reach out to you? Is it like day one, or is it no later than REBA stage 2, even if it's just sort of like the initial
feasibility stage is always a great idea.
Yeah.
If you've got an idea of what you want and you've got it marked up, and you want to understand the implications of how it will work, etc., reach out to us. We're more than happy to take a look at your design, and guide you. I think that's the most important thing. We're there to assist. There's no point you spending hours, months, days on a scheme that I could look at in a couple of minutes and say that's not a feasible design. So feasibility is your keyword, and I think that's probably the most important aspect, is get in touch with us sooner rather than later, because it will help you out in the future. Yeah,
I mean, the worst thing you're ever going to say is, oh, we're a little bit too early, just come back in a week or two,
Yeah,
say,
correct.
Well, there's no harm in asking.
As long as you've got some plans on paper, we'll take a look at your design.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and again, thank you so much for joining us. One of the things, obviously, I hope is, we mentioned a few topics there that I think you'll be very knowledgeable on. So if the audience is willing and they want to, and they wanted to invite you back, would you be happy to come back? And that's always good.
Definitely.
No, and I do appreciate you coming. And like I said, sorry I've chucked you a few curveballs there, but even for myself, I'm very interested, because I'm not a fire engineer, and like I said, I know my limitations, and it's interesting to sort of scratch behind the surface of that area as well. So, but thank you. So just to the audience, if you have enjoyed this, we are going to be continuing the series with other areas of the passive fire community, so we all see the problems and the positives that we're facing. If you want to get in touch, please contact us using the contact details that will appear on the screen. And for now, my name is Alec, and this is Mandy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.